welcome to my channel. I'm Steve Down. This is my guitar. If you're just joining us, we are on the second episode of a study of The Red One by John Scofield and Pat Metheny, taken from their Blue Note album, I Can See Your House From Here. I'm transcribing the entire piece, including both solos, and I'll be posting the transcription on here. And also you'll be able to download the PDF and guitar profiles for the transcription, and also for all the exercises, scales, arpeggios, chords, etc. that you see in the video. That will all be over on my Patreon channel. The link is on the screen here. You'll also be able to download a backing track which I created specifically for this. So it's big thanks to Joe Harris and to Jamie Sefton for putting the bass and drums down on that. I've been loving the feedback that I've been getting from you guys on this series so far. I dropped the first lesson last week. So this week we take a look at Scofield's solo, the first part of it. The solo is structured by 8 bars of the A section, which is in B minor, and then 4 bars of the B section, which is over E7, and then another 4 bars of the A section, which is again back over B minor. He then repeats that. This week we're looking at just part 1, so just the first half of his solo. We're going to dive into some lessons on articulation, the Dorian pentatonic scale, raking, string bends, phrasing, arpeggios, and even more than that as well. So this is going to be a fairly packed lesson. Before we go any further, I just want to say a big thanks to all of the people who are supporting me in various different ways on this channel with these videos. Thanks to all the guys over on Patreon, and welcome to Jeff and David this week in that community. Thanks for all of you guys who do the Buy Me a Coffee link, which is below. And also, just big thanks to all of the people who are watching this video, liking, subscribing. It really means a lot, and it shows me that obviously there is a place for these kind of videos on YouTube. So thanks so much for your support. So if you do want to support me, then Patreon is the place to go if you want to support and also get the benefit of the transcriptions and the backing tracks and all the exercise packs and a few bonus things as well. The link is up on the screen here. If you want to do it in a one-off fashion and you've got financial capability to do so, then there's a link to buy me a coffee below. And then I still, as I keep saying, I still value all of the people who like and subscribe on this channel as well, because that's just as supportive. So let's get cracking into the first half of Sco's solo, and let's take a look at bars 1 to 4. Hey guys, just a little drop in here. I just wanted to bring something to your attention that I'd forgotten to include in the main video, and it is quite important. If you'd got the transcription off the Patreon channel of the original head, you'll notice that I put the tempo as 208. On this one, it shows it as 104, which looks like it's in half time, but if you look at the way that I've actually scored it, it will actually sound the same. So it won't actually be in half time. The reason why I've done this is because it actually shows on the page Scofield's phrasing a little better than if I'd scored it out in 208. So the solo just looks a bit different to how the head does. When I eventually put the whole thing together, I'll put it all in 208, but it's just so I can demonstrate his phrasing. So back to the video. So these opening bars are awesome. This is Scofield at his best, and the main thing here is articulation. Articulation is the way that you play the notes, and that could take various forms. I'm not going to go into all of them, but the ones that Sco uses the most is bends, slides, and also hammer-ons and pull-offs. Obviously, there's other things like tapping as well, but we're not going to go into that here because Scofield doesn't use that so often and doesn't actually use it at all in this solo. Practicing all of these articulation techniques gives you various different options to be able to creatively make your line sound lyrical, which is the way that Scofield uses it. So what you could do is you could try taking a line like the opening line, the first bar in this solo, and trying to alter the articulation to make it sound a bit different and to get creative with it. So here's a couple of ways that you can do that. You'll see that I show you the initial line, then after that you'll see me play the line with bends, with slides, and with hammer-ons or pull-offs. the next thing I want to take a look at is what Sco does in bar 3, which is really, really interesting. So it's this little line. So what he's doing there is he's actually using a scale which is known as a hexatonic scale. A hexatonic scale basically is a scale that has neither 5 nor 7 notes, it actually has 6 notes. Now it sounds horrendously complicated, but the way that we are using a hexatonic scale in this context is we are taking a pentatonic scale and we are adding 1 note to it. So we're making it a 6-note scale rather than a 5-note scale. Lots of other fusion players such as Larry Carlton and Robin Ford and Scott Henderson use this approach. What we've done is we've added a G sharp to the B minor pentatonic. So your B minor pentatonic, nice and easy in this particular position. Now we're going to add the G sharp in both octaves to the minor pentatonic scale. So including all of the minor pentatonic notes, but adding that G sharp. And you'll see it gives you a slightly different flavour without going fully Dorian. And then Scofield finishes off this particular 4-bar phrase with pretty much a perfect cadence. Now, this is a point to talk about here. What Scofield does here is, in these first 4 bars, is he actually ignores all of those chords that are going on underneath. There's quite a lot of chords, as you'll see on the transcription, that both Pat Metheny and Steve Swallow, the bass player, are suggesting with their comping to Sco's solo. But Sco's not having to actually reference all of those chords. If he did, his solo might sound a little bit messy or too busy. This is an important lesson to learn, that you don't have to reference every single chord that is underneath, just the really important ones that actually aid your melody. So this is something we can take away from this. The little line that Scofield plays is, so that note there, the reason why I'm saying it's a perfect cadence is because that note there, the A sharp, would be taken from an F sharp 7. So it's suggesting F sharp 7 back to B minor there. And it's just a good way of rounding off a phrase, and that tells me, that little line at the end of the 4 bars tells me that he is phrasing in 4 bars. Okay, so let's look at bars 5 to 8. Okay, in these next 4 bars, Sco kicks it up a notch. There's far more notes in these 4 bars. And it's really, really obvious that he's using 4-bar phrasing here with little fragments. So 1-bar fragments each time. It's absolutely amazing phrasing, and it's really obvious that he's drawing from one of his guitar heroes, Jim Hall. There's an amazing little clip on YouTube that I actually unfortunately couldn't find this time, where somebody asks his influences and he says, Jimi Hendrix and Jim Hall and Wes Montgomery and Jim Hall and Jeff Beck and Jim Hall, and he just keeps coming back to Jim Hall, and Jim Hall does phrase absolutely beautifully. He's a genius of phrasing, and I think this is what Scofield's showing here. So little bar fragments, almost in a question and answer kind of format, in a 4-bar phrase. So that first phrase that he plays, that little crushed note at the beginning, and then the second phrase, that's a really, really cool little phrase because he's using some lateral stuff for the minor pentatonic. So it's well worth making sure that you know your minor pentatonic on 1 string so that you can do things like that. And then using this little line as the 3rd fragment. Now this is really, really actually quite interesting. It's really obvious here that he's using a B natural minor here rather than that Dorian hexatonic scale that he was using earlier. So this just shows you that Scofield is actually using as many different types of minor scale in order to be able to make his solo sound interesting. So this line that he plays uses the natural minor for the majority of it, and then he comes back to that G sharp, back to the Dorian again at the end. But it's cool that he's starting on that C sharp there instead of starting on a B. So, you know, he's starting on a C sharp, and he's creating this C sharp minor flat 5 to be able to kind of create something that's interesting. Rather than starting on one of the chord tones, he actually starts on the 9th. And then comes back to the 9th again at the end there, making it sound quite interesting. And then, you know, phrasing again at the end, going back to the G sharp. I think that G sharp at the end, I think that's to provide a little bit of tension for the way that he ends the 4-bar phrase. Again, that's a really clear sign that he's ending that phrase. So it's, again, screaming to me, I'm phrasing in 4 bars. So this is, again, something we can learn from Sco, and it's something that you should do in your own practice as well. When you get the backing track, make sure that you are phrasing in 4 bars using these little fragments if you want to try and get this kind of sound. So all of these phrasing ideas are absolutely essential for your ability to be able to communicate effectively with your listener and to be able to craft a solo with a bit of a story arc. We all love story, and life's infused with it, so use that to your advantage. The listener's going to be looking for it or listening for it, so make sure that you're using that. Okay, let's jump into the B section with bars 9 to 12. Okay, so the B section changes to that E7. If you watch the first video, you'll see where we went over that E7 section where it's got a gigantic pad. So Sco uses his famous crunchy close-voiced chords here. He's got a pedal of a B and an E. At least one of those is running all of the time through this phrase. And then he's sticking in this area of the 7th and 9th fret, but he's playing notes that are kind of derived from the E7 or E9 chord, or you could say from the E Mixolydian scale. So it's useful making sure that you know laterally again where those notes are. And here's the E Mixolydian that is on the 3rd string. And the line that he's playing, so he's got that open string running all of the time, and so there's tons of clashes there. And I think that sounds great. I think that's why, you know, everyone remembers these particular kind of close, crunchy chords that Sco plays, because they're so clashy. And they kind of like tug at your ear a little bit, and so everyone remembers them. So Sco finishes off this whole little section with some E minor pentatonic lines, and he's using the 4th, 5th, and 1st position of the E minor pentatonic scale, but he's joining them laterally. Remember, I keep saying in these lessons that the cage system is a good tool to use to be able to understand the fretboard, but it will only help you really vertically. And in order to be able to join your solo so that it is smooth, fluid, lyrical, you need to make sure that you're actually understanding the fretboard laterally as well. So it's a good idea to make sure that you are joining those ones together. So here are the positions. But just make sure that you know how to move between these positions. So if you're going from this position here, make sure that you can move effectively up into this position, and then up into that one. And do it on the next strings down as well. Okay, let's return to the A section and see what Sco's doing there. Okay, so here Sco is playing a double string bend followed by a rake. This is quite a tricky little thing that he does here, so I've slowed it down. Here it is. So basically what you're doing here is you're bending a D and a G sharp up a tone, but both at the same time, not just... You're bending both up at the same time. Now, the way that you want to do this is making sure that you've got your thumb over the top of the guitar, and that as you bend, your wrist comes out, okay? And as you do that, your fingers will start to point upwards, and that's ideal because then you can tuck the 3rd string underneath your 2nd finger. I'm using my 2nd and 3rd fingers for this because it feels the most comfortable. Try not to move your whole body or bring your shoulder too far up. You'll see people kind of doing that. It's okay that your shoulder comes up a tad, but not all the way up like that. Otherwise, the guitar ends up controlling you rather than you controlling the guitar. And so you won't really be able to bend very much because the guitar is kind of coming up as you're bending, and so the bending actually doesn't happen. So you've got to make sure that you're keeping the guitar straight and that you're moving, I don't think I did it properly then, you're moving your wrist out more than your shoulder. Okay. Then we've got the rake, which is achieved by playing the note of E on the 3rd string. That's the one that you're heading for. It's your target note. Play that with your 3rd finger, and then your 1st finger just lays on the first 2 strings, like that. And you're dragging your pick back up over the string, just in basically like you would for an up strum, but slightly more intentional. And you're going to accent slightly that note as you get to it, like that. So you'll see that as you drag back, the emphasis will end up on that 3rd string. So your whole line will be, you've got those offbeat little notes at the end there. At the end, again, we've got that same idea that he was using earlier with the different positionings of the minor pentatonic scale, but he's drawing them all together laterally. So just make sure that you know this laterally. The positions that he's using is 1st, 2nd, and 4th. And the line. So the positions he's using. And this one here. And then this one up here. He does also dip into this one. So he dips into this position as well. So it's good to make sure that you know all the positions, but notice he's using that slide from this position into that one. So he's not just playing in one position. And then, so he plays a phrase up there and then answers it in the next place down, rather than sticking in one position. The interesting thing about the end is that he kind of mimics that perfect cadence thing. So again, so he's really driving home the fact that this phrase is finished here. Okay, so this first half of the solo is chock full with techniques of how to approach a fairly open, harmonically speaking, sounding solo, because it's pretty much just B minor and then E7 and then back to B minor again. And Sco uses plenty of different techniques, be it articulation, different types of scales, phrasing. He uses all of these different things to be able to make his solo not sound boring. My advice is to learn the solo note for note, learn the concepts that I'm talking about in here, and then use them creatively over your own solo, using the backing track if you've managed to get it off of Patreon. You can get all of these examples, transcriptions, backing track over on the Patreon channel. The link is on the screen here. We'll be looking at part 2 of Sco's solo before we move into Metheny's part next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell if you want updates on when the next video is here. And until then, happy practicing, and I'll see you next time. Bye.